Hello and welcome. I'm Sherry, and I want to welcome you to Sherry's Simple Summaries. And in this video, I will be giving out free information, extra, get your free information. I'll be summarizing a book, and it's a book called Guinea Pigs, written by Dr. John Hall, and as the title states, it's a book about human guinea pigs used for, see this picture here just to illustrate our point, a human guinea pig in a hospital gown in a cage with a bottle of water. This is non-consensual guinea pig testing, human guinea pigs, non-consensually. And the reason that is done is for the area of training, research, and development, okay? Training, research, and development. So, I just want to explain a little. You'll see me looking to the right. This is where my notes are. I do have to reference them. I did not memorize everything. So stick with me though. I know your time is valuable, and so is the information in this video. You're gonna really appreciate it once you have it. You know, and I've watched a lot of YouTubes myself, so I know this can be kind of a challenge to sit down and listen to somebody talk and watch their, but I'm going to try to make it interesting. I'll show you a visual of the key points, and I will go through this simply and directly. And like I said, it's valuable info. Your time is valuable, and so is this information. So stick around, okay? And we'll have a little bit of fun. It's a fascinating subject. So yeah, join me as I summarize Chapter 4 of the book called Guinea Pigs by Dr. John Hall. Chapter 4 title is Remote Neural Monitoring. All right, I'll just show it to you. Remote Neural Monitoring, it's an acronym, RNM, Remote Neural Monitoring. I'll explain what that is, but for now, that's the name of the chapter. It's based on our favorite word from the last video, if you remember. This is my new favorite word for 2018. EMFs, which stands for electromagnetic frequency. Just remember that. We'll explain it. We explained it last video, but we'll explain it again. It's fascinating. It runs the world. It runs our minds, our bodies, and our environments. EMFs. All right. EMFs are read out by something. Here's another word for you. Just throwing these out here. It's called EEG. That doesn't mean egg. It stands for electroencephalogram. Just like you've heard of electrocardiogram, that's to measure the electricity in the heart. Electricity, cardio, heart, gram, measuring. Same thing with this. I'll show you again. EEG for electroencephalogram. Electro meaning the electricity that runs in our brains. Encephalo meaning the head brain area. And gram, the machine that measures it. It measures it in wavelengths. So you've seen the little scratchy outputs of EKGs. EEGs are the same way. I'll show you an example, a picture later, so you can get a visual. But those are some main points here. Those are some main words that are going to keep coming up throughout this, when I break this chapter down. And it's not going to take long. So bear with me. It's fascinating. It's about mind control. You have a mind, right? Yes. This is what they want to control. This right here is a very valuable thing. You've heard of people wanting money or gold or silver is very valuable. It is, but so is this thing. The human brain. How wondrously we are made. Okay. Before we move forward in Chapter 4, I just want to take about 5 minutes to recap from Chapter 2. And I'll just do that real briefly here, because I think if you're a new viewer, you need to know what we covered last time. And even if you watched the last video, I'll just recap real briefly, okay? So because it's a book called Guinea Pigs, non-consensual human testing, you want to know these things. So the key points from Chapter 2 was the history of MKULTRA, making of, MKULTRA stands for mind control. That's from the German K. That was brought over from World War II Germany over here, and they named the actual program MKULTRA, standing for mind control. And then with that program, the goal was to make mind control slaves. All right. And they use a lot of technology to do that, to make a mind control slave. There's actually three ingredients, but technology is one of the most important ones. And technology, meaning the EMFs that make up the thoughts and emotions when you think them. That sends out an electrical, a frequency, electromagnetic frequency that is the manifestation of your thoughts and emotions. Okay? That word will come up a lot, EMFs. Alrighty. MKULTRA, just to bring you up to date here, that was originally the name of the program. It was rumored to have been closed down, or I'm sorry, it was the original MKULTRA was closed down, and it's rumored to still exist under a different name that they call Project Monarch for the monarch butterfly, which I'd like to break down why it's called Project Monarch in a later video. It's fascinating, the history of monarch butterflies and the ability of epigenetic memory, which is memory that you can actually store in your genes. And when you're just when you are born to somebody or born from somebody, you carry some of their DNA in your epigenetic memory. You would think that you only carry physical things, your hair or your eyes or your whatever things, physical things, but you actually memories can be epigenetic, can be actually stored in the DNA and transferred from parents to children, particularly when it comes to things like trauma that happens in generational abuse families that are into certain things, and your genetic can store that, so that the next generation, if they get traumatized, you're able to deal with it better and disassociate quicker and easier because you have that memory, epigenetic, in your DNA. So hence the Project Monarch. Okay, I digress. So mind control slaves. Here is an example of one, well, a fictional one, based on, real life, obviously. The Bourne identity. This is Jason Bourne. He was a mind-controlled Manchurian candidate, mind control slave Manchurian candidate type, which means a super soldier. If you've seen the movie, it's pretty good. It just shows how he was, he was born into a new identity of a super soldier, and he went through a lot being a mind control slave. If you haven't seen the movie, I highly suggest it. Okay, another example of a mind control slave would be something like this. Not Rick, you know this, right? The Walking Dead. Okay, not him. Look at all those in the back, those zombies. Those are mind control slaves. Okay, figuratively speaking, obviously we're not going to be called literal zombies, but if you get on mind control, you will, they very much resemble these things. There's a recipe for making a mind control slave. You can't just take a normal person from, living, breathing, thinking, having dreams, hopes, thoughts, emotions, and turn them into something else, a super soldier or a sex slave or a slave. You can't do that without using a particular recipe. There's 3 main ingredients that are needed to make a mind control slave. We covered that last time, but I'll just recap. The first thing is a lot of psychological trauma-based conditioning. Trauma is anything that hurts the mind, body, or soul. So things like rape, physical abuse, verbal abuse, anything that causes trauma and hurts somebody. Okay, that's trauma-based conditioning, using fear, okay, and pain. Second thing that you're going to need is RA and SRA, which stands for ritual abuse or satanic ritual abuse, and that's torture-based things, let's see, sensory deprivation, things that just torture basically. And the third thing that you need to make a mind control slave in our recipe is technology, particularly electromagnetic frequency technology, because the human brain operates on electromagnetic frequencies, EMFs. So if you're able to, in technology, if you're able to imitate those EMFs and manipulate them, then you can manipulate the person's behavior, making them into a mind control slave, which is what we do not want, right? That's the goal of those programs. Our goal is to prevent it, okay? And not to freak you out, but with these programs, there's funding done for them. And usually, a lot of times, the funding is done quarterly. So, you know, January, March, you know, quarterly. January is right around the corner. And yeah, they're going to be having tons of funding. It's the first quarter too, you know, so they're going to hit the ground running. Okay. And they're going to need more guinea pigs. You know, people like me and you. Well, I'm probably already one, more likely than not, sad as that is, but I digress. You don't want to become one. If you can help it, you can't always help it. Your name just gets put on a random list if you fit the certain demographics of what they're looking for. But just be aware of that. January is coming around the corner. So this information is valuable. Your time is too. So is this info. All right, so join me. Well, we won't take long. Okay. Ta-da. Sherry's Simple Summaries, Chapter 4, Remote Neural Monitoring, in the book of Guinea Pigs by Dr. John Hall. You know what? I don't like the way I'm looking tonight, but that's fine. It's been a long day, people. Long. Don't worry about it, though. Forget about it. We're still going to get through this. All right, so we left off at Chapter 2 and Chapter 4 in Guinea Pigs, RNM, you know, remote neural monitoring. It's the ability, in a nutshell, it's the ability of the human brain to be synced. Bluetooth, maybe would be a good word for it. Yeah, syncing, Bluetoothing. It's the ability of the human brain to be synced with a computer. That's right. The ability to sync a human brain with a computer, also called BCI, brain-computer interface. Okay. And in remote neural monitoring, there actually exists the ability to have your thoughts, your actual thoughts, read out in real time. Because as it turns out, human and animal brains are very sensitive to the electromagnetic field that surrounds our environment. The Earth has a natural one. Plus, if you remember from the last video, our brains operate on EMFs. Every thought, every emotion, that's an EMF. Same thing with our bodies, like I just moved my arm. Anytime you move something, a body part, a signal has to go from your brain to that muscle to make the body part move. That's an EMF, a frequency to send that signal. So your brain operates off them, your body operates off of them, and they're in the environment, obviously, with things like Wi-Fi. That's how we're doing this broadcast right now. There also, it runs the radio waves, frequencies, RF, radio frequencies. TV is run off of EMFs. And microwave ovens, it's right in the name, waves and frequencies can be interchangeable, same thing. So you see, it's all in our environment. And yeah, so the human brain and animal brains are extremely sensitive to electromagnetic fields. So much so to where you can actually sync the human brain with a computer. All right? Because then they just end up sending, you know, EMFs back and forth, like syncing, right? Just like with your phone to the computer. Your phone sends the signal, the computer gets it, sends it back. Same thing, same idea with your brain. Your brain has a signal, sends it to the computer sends it back, and so on and so forth. Pretty amazing. All right. So Chapter 4, though, we're going to get in detail about how this remote neural monitoring was developed back in the 70s. Universities like Stanford received a ton of money. I think the book quotes $338,000 in a contract to do this research. And I know that if you look into it, obviously there's money going out all the time for this. And I know recently, just to quote a number, I believe it was $4 billion was given to a university, you know, to help do this training and development research for mind control in recent years. I mean, that's just one university, or that, you know, that was just one entity, and there's lots more, because this is of utmost importance, you know, to do this mind control on human guinea pigs, non-consensually. All right, so I want to give you the key points we're going to cover in here, okay? Excuse my writing, I had to, you know, do a little scratchy, but I'm going to try my best just to sum it up. It's about 3 points we're going to cover in this video, and we're at 15 minutes, so we're doing good for time. All right. In remote neural monitoring, as the name suggests, there was a quest to find a way to do EEGs remotely, EEGs is the ability to read the EMFs. Used to be that you had to actually have the person in person to put the electrodes on them to then hook them up to the computer to have it read out. But you know, obviously they wanted a more efficient way of doing that. So their goal in Chapter 4 it covers, they wanted to find a way to do remote electroencephalograms, EEGs. All right. So the doctors that did that research, one famous one is Dr. Pineo, and he was a doctor at Stanford, and he actually made a dictionary of human thoughts and emotions based upon the EEG readouts. I'll get into it, but that's what it's in a nutshell. That's what it is about. And then also, sorry, this was okay. Dr. Robert G. Malik. We're going to cover how he created a machine that allowed the same thoughts and emotions that Dr. Pineo made into a dictionary. How he was able to create a machine using that same dictionary to be able to send those EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, back into the subject, the person, from the machine. This was back in the 70s. So yeah, they completed their goals. They found a way to remotely monitor EMFs, human brain activity, and then they went a step further because they found out they were able to create a machine that could actually send those signals back in to the subject remotely without any need for the physical electrodes, which I'll show you a picture of. You'll understand. It'll make more sense. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are our key points, those 3 things. Excuse me while I do my notes here. All right. Well, okay. So I'm going to reference my notes. It turns out that the problem for researchers was to have people in person to experiment, to read their brain waves, EMFs. Okay. For one of the reasons, when you're doing mind control, I guess it's better to be a covert type thing so that people don't get freaked out. So the quest was to be able to have, to be able to start reading EMFs in the brain remotely through EEGs, but without having the actual electrodes on them. So now remotely, just to illustrate, remotely can mean, for monitoring purposes, can mean your next door neighbor, your downstairs neighbor, across the street neighbor, maybe across a different side of town neighbor, maybe a different city, remotely, maybe a different state. That's all remote, meaning a distance, not the person doesn't need to be in person. It's remote. How far depends, but that's the idea. So we already mentioned that the doctor who worked on this was named Dr. George Pineo. And again, he wanted to find a way to do remote EEGs. I want to show you a picture of an EEG. Okay. This is an idea. Now you see the person, and you see the little electrodes placed over the scalp. What that does, those electrodes pick up the electromagnetic activity from the brain and reads it out on this apparatus. This is the EEG here. This is the machine that reads it out. Or I'm sorry, yeah, these work in tandem. This reads the brain activity and this interprets the brain activity. EEG, electroencephalogram, to measure EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies in the brain. So, bear with me. I think this is going to be a note flipping night. I can already feel it. Fine though. This is a lot of information, and you need, you're going to need this to grasp the point. Pictures are always more helpful, aren't they? I always like pictures. I don't like fuddling through them, but I like pictures. Okay, we talked about the EEG, and the EEG is used, again, to read out the EMFs. So those are two important acronyms, okay? EEG, EMF. EEG and EMF. You can't have one without the other. Well, you can, but you won't get the same result, right? Because the EMFs are your thoughts and emotions read out into frequencies, but you need the EEG to read it out. So, yeah, you do really need both. Okay, here we go. EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, and EEG, electroencephalogram. Here is the electroencephalogram, egg, and this is a picture of it. Again, that's placed on the brain, the electrodes, and then the EEG reads out the activity from the brain. The activity, because that's such a simple word, right? Activity. Activity from this. Remember, this is very valuable. Very valuable. Probably more so than silver or gold or any of that. Because it's, you know, it's us. All right, I'm going to keep that up here. I want to illustrate my point here. Okay. This EEG machine is reading brain activity, is reading EMFs. Okay, again, EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies. EEG is the machine that reads them. Well, so what? What does that mean? Okay, what is an EMF? Electromagnetic frequency. But what is an electromagnetic frequency? Okay, here, this is what it is, and this is why it's important. Okay, this right here. Every thought and every emotion by every human is interpreted as an EMF. Okay, so every thought, every emotion that is read out, that can be manifested as an electromagnetic frequency. You get it? So every thought, every emotion. And emotions are things like this. Got a little visual for you again. Okay, this chart here. We have the basic emotions, anger, fear, sadness, and joy. You know, and then it says underneath all the all the sub-emotions that stem off of these primary emotions. You notice that? They're the primary colors. So, emotions. I mean, this is us, right? When you're mad, when you're sad, when you're glad, when you're happy, when you're, you're joyful, all that. That is up here. As a first, we think it or feel it, and then it gets manifested as in, hold on, patience, patience. I think you guys are being really good. I don't know, maybe you're on the other side calling me a SOB, I don't know. But you see, I bet you're doing good. You're going to get through this. So every thought, every emotion is this. Okay? You can't see this. This is what goes on at the electromagnetic level, but that's what it is. So, and why is that important? Thoughts and emotions. Here, this is why it's important. Because every thought and emotion leads to a behavior. Right? Usually an observable behavior. Usually. So a thought would be, I feel like I have good information to share. Right? So then I'm going to make a video and share it. So the video would be the observable behavior. Before the behavior came the thought. Okay? Okay? Same thing with emotions. I feel happy, so I'm going to sing. Singing would be the observable behavior. All right? So thoughts and emotions lead to behaviors. So EMFs can read out your thoughts and emotions. Okay? They can read your thoughts and your emotions. And So now that you understand that, and you understand how big of a part EMFs play in everything, because they make up everything in our world. They make up our brain. I'll show you a picture. Our brain, an artist's interpretation of it, our brain runs off of, again, electromagnetic frequencies. And if you hear me repeating myself a lot, it's because I want to make sure that you understand that. The brain is, you know, when we think of the brain, oftentimes we think of this, right? This one, which, yes, that's right. That's the organ, is the brain. That's a living, breathing organ. So, but inside of that, on a microscopic level or atomic level, you know, in its inners workings, it's electromagnetic frequencies, because the whole mind and the body work off of electromagnetic frequencies. Same thing with our environment, okay? Our environment is full of electromagnetic frequencies. You can find them in things like microwaves, TVs, cell phones, you know, internet that we're using right now to broadcast. So it's all connected with EMFs. So this Dr. Pineo, get back to my notes here. Dr. Pineo, through Stanford, did a lot of research, and he wanted, again, to find a way to do those EEGs, to read those EMFs, so that they can read thoughts and emotions, right? They're not just wanting to read those squiggly lines for nothing. Those EEGs represent human thoughts and human emotions. So is it fascinating? Yes, it's fascinating. Aren't we fascinating? Don't we think a million thoughts a day, a trillion, with infinite amount of thoughts per day, just in 5 minutes? That's what they wanted. So EMFs are thoughts and emotions manifested in electromagnetic frequencies. Okay? So, and to be able to read that, an EMF with an EEG is to be able to read the thoughts and emotions of a human mind. Fascinating. We're at a half an hour. Half an hour more and we're done. Okay. So Dr. Pineo, he worked on designing a communication link between man and computer. Again, this we could explain as he wanted to Bluetooth sync the human brain with the computer. Okay? BCI is also referred to as brain-computer interface. The hypothesis that he had, and this is important, the hypothesis that Dr. Pineo had was that the electrical activity in the brain during actual thought, when you're actually producing the electromagnetic frequencies, not actually saying anything, just thinking it first, okay? The hypothesis was that that your brain, let me make sure I explain this right. The hypothesis was that your brain produces electromagnetic frequencies the same as when you actually speak your thoughts out loud, as well as even when you're just thinking about speaking them. Okay? So you know the old saying, you know, think before you speak? Well, it turns out that you can't help but to. And the reason for that is because, and remember, this goes in with EMFs again, working in the body, from the mind to the body. Whenever you move a muscle, arms, legs, throat muscles, you know, to speak, that requires vocal cords, and there's all muscles throughout here that help us to speak. So those muscles can't just move on their own, though, obviously. They have to get the signal from the brain to send it out, to form the speech. So the hypothesis of Dr. Pineo, to tie this all together, the hypothesis of Dr. Pineo was that that even when someone thought of something that they were going to say, they could still catch those frequencies and read it out before they reach the vocal cords. So, again, able to read your thoughts and emotions, even if you don't say them. Fascinating, right? So moving on. And again, I just want to reiterate, don't get mad at me for emphasis, but this is important. Every thought and emotion is an electromagnetic frequency. Every single one, every time. It's never not an electromagnetic frequency, to my understanding. And they would have said so in the books. And I've read multiple, I've done multiple research. And that's how it works. Every thought and every emotion is an EMF. Okay, and EMFs is an EMF. And EMFs can, again, for emphasis, one more time, EMFs are read out by EEGs, electroencephalogram, the same one like at the hospital, electrical cardiogram, electroencephalogram. Okay, and here's what it looks like. That's what it looks like when you're in person having it done. Dr. Pineo wanted to find out a way to do it by remote control. Remote meaning you don't have to be in the same room, okay? Maybe they didn't want the test subject, to have to be in the hospital or the university or whatever, having all this hooked up to them. That's quite obvious, right? You want to be able to do it remotely. Then you wouldn't have to have all this. You could just send it through the air. Did they figure it out? This was back in the 70s. Of course they did. How? Well, they did experiments on guinea pigs. Some consensual, some non. I'm pretty sure it's how it always works. And what they did was they put those electrodes on the frontal temporal lobes of the subjects. And the subjects were shown pictures of words. Okay? They were showed the pictures of the words while their brains were hooked up to the EEGs. So the EMFs, when they were thinking of the word, would show what they were thinking. Okay? So that's just like when I show you something, remote neural monitoring, if you, and you and you and you, or whoever, nobody, but whoever, if you or me was hooked up with electrodes and we were looking at this word, this is how they did their experiments. They showed people cards with words. Then our brain would light up in a certain way, in a certain area that showed this word. That coincided with us thinking this word. And see, every time they would show us this word, the same part of the brain would light up, right? Your brain's not going to take a different path every time. That would be inefficient. Why would it? That's like when you're walking to the store. You're going to take a different path all the time? Not really. For efficiency, you probably would take the same route. Hang on. So, remote neural monitoring, every time you would see this word in the experiments, this is how they were run, a certain part of your brain would light up. So, familiarity, because the same path is taken every time. Okay? So, now here was a little part here was something interesting that came up in the experiment, okay? So anyways, but using that theory, when they kept showing people the same, the words, and they would follow their brain pattern to see what pattern their brain followed as they were thinking of the words. After they did that for so long, every day, every day, every day, every week, every week, every week, same words, same words, same words, different words, and every time the brain would take the same path when you have the same word. Okay? So the doctor was able to create a dictionary of words when the people were thinking, from the cards, because he would show them the card, which I just showed one to you, but I'll show it to you. So he would show them the card of the word, remote neural monitoring, and you would be hooked up to the electrodes, and he would be able to see what path, what wave pattern your brain took when it was seeing this word. So with that, he was able to create a dictionary of the words and emotions even that the people were thinking of based upon the EEG readings. So that's how you can read somebody's thoughts or emotions. And he cataloged them in a dictionary. Okay, so when, I will take me for example, when Sherry thinks of ice cream, her brain follows a certain, it goes up, up, down, down to the right. Then he would put that in the dictionary. Ice cream, okay, the code for ice cream for Sherry is up, up, down, down, right, right. And that's just one word. And he created a dictionary of words, of thoughts and emotion, actual human thoughts and emotions from test subjects. Okay, so you see where we're going here. He is looking in the brain and he's finding out what exact wave patterns are used when a person thinks of a certain thought or emotion. Mind reading, right? Okay, here's where it got sticky. The use of homonyms. Homonyms is basically like this. It's the words that sound the same, because English, we're not phonetic like, say, Spanish. It's their language, is it how it sounds, it's written, which is very simpler, actually, but I digress. In English, we have lots of homonyms, words that sound the same but mean two totally different things, right? So we have right, R-I-G-H-T, right-handed, or we have write, as in writing. I'm going to write something, okay? I'm going to write a letter. I'm going to write a thank you note. I'm going to turn right. I'm right-handed. Okay? So this is an example of a homonym. When he showed patients that were hooked up to the EEGs, when he showed them the cards with these two different words separately, and he would measure their brain activity, the EMFs, and they would be the same if the people just thought of the word. So if you sit there and you just think, okay, excuse, the camera got weird there. If you just think of the word right, but you don't think of it in context, the same area of the brain would light up. So he couldn't distinguish, right, for his dictionary. And if you're wanting to read minds and read thoughts, well, you got to know what the person was thinking of. Were they thinking of this right or this right? Well, who knows, because when you don't put them in context, the same part lights up. So then he found out that when you put the word into context, in a sentence, into context, then different parts lit up. Okay, I'm right-handed, takes this path. I'm going to write a letter, takes this path. So they were two distinctive EMF patterns. And he was able to put them in that dictionary of human thoughts and emotions. Actual, real ones, the wave patterns that make them. How does this all tie in? Well, let me look at my notes here. Well, it was just it was just amazing that he was able to do that. So once, and he was able to do it remotely. So they didn't need to have the person there hooked up to the electrode. So that was a big step too. Remember, that was the quest, to not be able to have to do it in person, right? Maybe sometimes if you want to monitor somebody's brain for mind control, you don't want to do it in person. Maybe you just want to be behind a computer somewhere doing it, right? Without their knowledge, because it's non-consensual many times. Hence the name of the book, Guinea Pigs. It's true. That's what it is. Okay, so then there was another doctor, part 2 to this research, another doctor by the name of Robert G. Malik, and his job was, once they realized they could remotely read those EMFs, thoughts and emotions, and actually were able to catalog them and put them into a dictionary, they went on to the next step, next logical step. What do you guys think it might have been? We're at 40 minutes. Okay, but I will just say it. The next logical step was actually altering those thoughts and emotions to affect behavior. Okay, it's not enough just to read the minds of people. You actually want to affect the behavior of people, right? That's part of mind control. You're wanting to control the behaviors. Otherwise, what's the use? You're just looking. That's interesting, but what about controlling? That's where the control part comes in. Mind control, behavioral modification, interchangeable. Okay, so the way that was done was Robert G. Malik produced an apparatus that he created that was able to send in, just like I just said, he was able to send in those EMFs, which are thoughts and emotions, back into the test subjects. Okay, so an example was, okay, when Sherry thinks of ice cream, her brain goes right, right, left, left. That's the wave pattern, okay? So then, all right, well, they know it's like a little code book, right? Like for gamers, you know, if you ever played, you know, that's their little reference, the dictionary. Oh, okay, so if we want Sherry to think, if Sherry wants to think of ice cream, we can have her think of ice cream by sending in the code. Right, right, left, left. And all of a sudden, I can be like, ice cream. I would like ice cream. What's the problem with wanting ice cream? Nothing. Nothing at all. And how are they able to do that? Well, because they had a dictionary. First, they read the EMFs. They read the thought, right? Through the electromagnetic frequency. Then they cataloged it in a dictionary. And then they made an apparatus that was able to send that EMF frequency back into the brain and make, you know, and reproduce that thought for me. I want ice cream. Okay, so now you understand. They could not only read thoughts and emotions of people, but they could actually had a machine to send them back into people via EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies. Not surprisingly, much of the research done after Malik and his machine, the patent for this device is, it was published in 1976. So it's a real live, obviously, it's a patented device. 1976, they were doing this back in 1976. So, not surprisingly, much of the mind control research after Malik and his machine focused on EEG, the machine, training, entrainment. It's called brain entrainment techniques that included using the dictionary of human thoughts and emotions to not only read the thoughts, again, but to send them in. So once they figured out, okay, hey, cool, we can read them and we can actually send them in. So send in different thoughts, different emotions, and this works because electromagnetic frequencies, let me just throw out a picture here, or the writing. Electromagnetic frequencies are, oh goodness gracious, hold on guys, thanks so much for your patience. I'm kind of tired doing this video. I probably should have waited, but it's important information and I just wanted to get it out to you and and move on and give you an idea. We're at 45 minutes pretty much, so we'll be done 15 minutes or less. Where is that one? Goodness gracious, come on. And I just have it. I just had it. There it is. Every thought and emotion is an electromagnetic frequency. Every single one. Thoughts of ice cream, thoughts of, emotions, mad, sad, glad. Those are all electromagnetic frequencies, which can be read remotely now by EEGs, which is electroencephalogram, measuring the electrical activity in the brain, particularly, specifically the EMFs. Okay, so that's mind reading. Okay, that's what that is in a nutshell. That's reading thoughts and emotions and then building a machine to be able to send them in. And that is because both electromagnetic frequencies in the brain, we can receive them and we can send them. Okay, remember our brain is like an antenna. Okay, it's an interface. We're like Bluetooth. We can send a signal out or we can receive a signal. My hands look all awkward. We can send one out or we can receive one in. Okay, that's amazing because everything works on signals. EMFs, my favorite word of 2018. Okay, moving it on so we can get done. We talked about the dictionary. We talked about the machine. And talked about EMFs. Oh, another thing, this technology has the ability to be used for good purposes. For instance, you've heard of soldiers or people who have lost limbs, you know, arms, legs, things like that. They can get prosthetic limbs. Those prosthetic limbs work by having brain-computer interface, using signals. Signal from the brain to send a signal to the body, to the prosthetic limb, to move it, which is a good thing because that allows people to, you know, have use of a limb again that before they didn't have years ago. Okay. Another thing, as a in my line of work, I worked in a facility where there was brain injury, and one of the people there actually, he couldn't move. He was in a wheelchair, and he had a chip in his eye. Okay, nanotechnology, I guess they can be put in the eyes, sometimes non-consensually. Again, that's the name of the book, is Guinea Pigs, non-consensual testing. But this guy had agreed to it. Anyways, he could move his wheelchair by giving the command from the chip in his eye, the nanotechnology, to the computer, brain-computer interface, Bluetoothing, syncing, right? And he could talk with it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to talk. So when we were having conversations as a group, you know, he wasn't able to speak with his vocal cords, but the computer would speak for him. And it was nice because it's all in real time. So as soon, you know, he was able to keep up the conversation with us. It wasn't like a pause or a delay. That chip in his eye translated the information that he wanted to pass in real time, and he could communicate with the group. Whereas time before this technology, people wouldn't have been able to do that. You know, you would have just had to sit or, you know, wait and then have the person write it out, or it would have took longer, and it's not as efficient. So it is a marvelous technology. Excuse me, very marvelous, very strong, you know, very powerful, as you can, you know, thoughts and emotions, powerful things. Another thing I wanted to mention, you might have seen this technology because there is a toy. It's Jedi Mind, if you guys are familiar with, I think it's, I forget, it's a science fiction movie, but something about a Jedi Mind Master toy came out back in 2009. I posted it before a couple times. You can look it up and take a look at the commercial and everything. It's a Jedi Mind toy, and it wirelessly, okay, harnesses the EMFs, the brain signals from the person to the toy. Okay, because the toy has a computer inside of it, so brain-computer interface, same syncing, Bluetoothing. And it uses the alpha and the beta waves in the brain. Waves is another terminology for frequency. So it uses those frequencies from the beta, alpha, and beta waves to trigger the fans to move the ball, the toy ball, up or down or sideways. So, you know, the power of the Jedi, the Mind Jedi. And that's using your EMFs to send a signal to the computer to move the ball, you know. So that toy helps to mainstream the idea of brain-computer interface technology, among other things, you know, soldiers and, you know, adaptive technology for people with disabilities. So that's a great thing. Okay, and then I just want to say this though too. I want to say this. We got to be, you know, be honest and be real in, you know, about things, and for information, okay? This toy, the very fact that it exists, might be insulting for someone who was maybe non-consensually experimented on before to develop this technology, and because of the nature of it, you know, the invisibility, you know, to send things in, thoughts and emotions, and maybe somebody said something and somebody else thought they were stone cold crazy, because that's what it sounds like, right? If you didn't know the technology exists, what are you talking about? You got something coming in your brain. What? Crazy. Okay, insulting. Because then they would see years later, imagine people, you know, then once somebody calls you crazy, you kind of shut up about it. You're like, well, geez, you know, but it was really happening, you know, as we see now. This technology has been around since the 70s. at the, you know, and even before then. So this has been going on, and too bad, because a lot of people have maybe been hospitalized or labeled mentally ill or delusional or, you know, schizophrenic just by mentioning it, that this technology, you know, that they were, you know, having these things happen to them, you know, only to see years later that a toy on the market exists that is showing that same technology. You can use your brain waves to send a message to the computer to make the toy ball go up and down and sideways, meaning that the computer can also send a signal back to your brain. You know, it works both ways. How, you know, can you imagine living through that? It'd be kind of like, you know, I told you so, but you don't want to say that. But, you know, MKULTRA as a program has been around since 1953, even earlier than that, I believe. A lot of the Korean soldiers came home after the Korean War with brainwashing signs, and they were actually called, many of them labeled delusional or paranoid, and given treatments, you know, to cure them. Treatments like electroshock therapy, which is exactly what it sounds, you know, taking that little taking this and putting electrodes on your scalp and shocking you. Not just reading it. The other one just reads it, okay? But then there's one that can actually like put shocks through it, you know, to shock you into, I don't know, used as a treatment. So imagine that, and then years later they see that toy back in, you know, in 2009. So what a wonderful age that we get to live in, that we get to be aware of this, you know, and that's one reason that I made this video. You know, and this is mainstream knowledge. It's for anybody who does the research, or even, you know, if you maybe you have that toy. Maybe you're a Star Wars fan and you already know about this. You know, we all know people who've had prosthetic limbs, or, you know of people. So just it's good to know this technology exists, and it's being used too on human guinea pigs. So that's something to keep it, you know, be aware of. And the ability to read our minds and send in, you know, thoughts and emotions, it can be done in real time. Just so you know, real time is exactly what it sounds like. It's like you think of it, poof. That's real time. So remote neural monitoring, as the name states, we'll go over that one more time. We're almost at an hour here, and I'm not going to keep you. There's the EEG again, the egg. Can do it remotely now. You don't need those little electrodes on your head. It can all be done through the air by remote. Doesn't actually look like that. It's a computer, but you get the idea. Used to look like this. Some of them still do in the hospital. But again, the title of this chapter is called Remote Neural Monitoring. Remotely monitoring your neural activity, which is your brain, your thoughts and emotions, through EMFs. Word of 2018. For me. I don't know what yours is. That's mine. You can have it. We can share it. For the word, you know, I don't mind sharing stuff. Some stuff, no, but, you know, you can also have that be your favorite word too. It's all good. We'll share the word. So I wanted to show you something. What was it? Now you're going to have to watch me shuffle for a moment. I apologize, but there's something important I wanted to show you before we leave off. Talked about the dictionary and all of that. Brain. Oh, okay. Well, on a cellular level, this is what the neurons in your brain look like. So when you hear the word, there you go. See that? That's a neuron. If they took a cell from your brain and looked at it under a microscope, that's what it would look like. Pretty fascinating. See, it looks like kind of like a forest of trees. Sometimes when you see the trees, especially here, you know, we're in the Midwest, when we look at the trees and they don't have any leaves on them, and they kind of look like a forest of trees, you know, without the leaves, that is. So, I'll show you this again. 5 minutes. Remote neural monitoring. Remotely monitoring your neural activity, which is your thoughts and emotions in real time. Real time. Poof, I thought of it. If somebody has me hooked up to a computer and they have access to my remote neural monitoring, well, they just were able to see what I was thinking. Because every thought is an EMF, and EMFs can be read by EEGs. Computer, right? I'll leave off on this. All of us are at risk for being guinea pigs. Not to scare you. Not to scare you, just so you can be aware. Be smart and do your research. New contracts are going out. New funding is, so there's always new guinea pigs going up on the market. Try to stay off that list if you can. You can't always, but know that this exists. Stay smart. Do your research. God loves you. He does. And one more time. Very interesting, right? That's only one way that the brain works, though. It is an organ, but like a car, it has, it works, it has many inner workings. And I like this picture because it reminds me of all the brain activity, all the thoughts and emotions that a person can think of throughout the day or even within 5 minutes. I mean, how beautiful it is, just lit up, full of thoughts and emotions. That is us, humans. Love it. Love being a human. Love being alive. Okay. That I wanted to show you. That's a representative of 3 different, they're all human bodies, but this is like what we think of most, the flesh and blood. This is more electrical, chemical, and this is frequency. This is, we're talking about EMFs, right, in our brains. That's how our thoughts and emotions are read, via EMFs. It's also in our bodies. That's how we send a signal from our brain to our arm to move it through EMFs. And they're also in the environment. That's how we're doing this broadcast right now, through Wi-Fi, which is an EMF, electromagnetic frequency, right? Okay, it's a frequency. Any more pictures I wanted to show you? I had a pretty picture of something. Yeah, we got time. Cutting it close, but we got time. Look at this. This is on, I like this picture. It's frequencies, Again, that's how it would look when your thoughts and emotions are being, sent out, broadcasted. Yeah, that's what I think when I see this. This is frequencies, just traveling through the air. Fascinating. Hope I explained that right. To quote, there's a quote by Tesla. Says, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy. And energy is things like solar and heat and electricity. Those are all frequencies. That's all energy. So he says, if you want to know the secrets if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Because everything vibrates. Even your organs have a certain frequency that they're supposed to vibrate on for optimal health. If they're not on that, if the number's higher or lower, you will not be in optimal health. You'll still live, still living, just not optimally. And that's okay for right now, right? Still living. But just keep that in mind, yeah. So, frequencies, EMFs. One last time for emphasis, and then I'll leave you alone. Okay, favorite word, EMF, electromagnetic frequencies. All thoughts and emotions give off electromagnetic frequencies. In order to read the electromagnetic frequencies, you need an EEG, electroencephalogram. They can be done in person at the hospital, but when non-consensual testing is done, they can also be done remotely. And you won't know it because EMFs are invisible, right? You can't see the broadcast coming through the frequencies that are making it possible, but of course they're working. That's how we're getting the broadcast. So they're pumping. We just can't see them. It's invisible. Part of the invisible frequency world. So EEGs, EMFs, and one last thing before we go. Oh yes. The name of this chapter. remote neural monitoring, all in real time. That can be done. Your brain, your thoughts, your emotions can be remotely monitored by someone with access to that type of EEG computer. Okay. All right, that was it. If you want to buy that book, this was chapter 4 in the book Guinea Pigs by Dr. John Hall. If you want to buy it, it's on Kindle for $7.99, or you can buy a hard copy through Amazon for about $10 to $20, either used or new. So it's definitely worth it. It's a simple read. Even though he's a doctor, he lays out this information very simply. There's a lot of research that he put into this, and it's good examples, and it's good information to know how it has progressed. And since we're living in these times, you'd want to know. All right, I thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you, and it was good information, so I hope you benefit from it. I would like for you to stay smart. Stay smart. I'm so tired. Stay smart. Goodness, what was my other one? Stay smart. Do your research. Do your research. And God loves you. I'm going to get some sleep. I am so tired. You guys have a good night. All right? Talk to you later. Thanks for joining me. Have a good one. Bye.